Yes, sir. All right. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late, guys. I wanted to go on at 9:15. It's 9:20. I'm a few minutes late. I had to handle a quick phone call. Got some bad news. Got some bad news about a good friend of mine. Uh, got some bad news, but we're here. And we're gonna stay productive. We're gonna stay focused. We're not gonna get sidetracked. You see the title of the video, you see the thumbnail, you understand what we're talking about. Tonight we're tackling the conversation of the Democrats being the biggest threat to democracy. Now, anyone who's read, Machiavelli, The Prince, right? Anyone who's read the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, people know that it's a law of power that what we should do is we take our biggest weakness and we accuse our opponent or our enemy of having that flaw, right? If there's something that we're doing that's wrong, instead of owning the fact we're doing something that's wrong, we're going to accuse our opponent of doing the exact same thing that we are actually, in fact, doing. And every time I see the Democrats say, we've got to vote, we've got to vote for Joe Biden because Trump and the Republicans are a threat to democracy. Every time I see that, it is an instant trigger in my mind that this is propaganda. This is propaganda that I'm currently listening to or watching. Every time I hear that, the Republicans and Donald Trump are the biggest threats to democracy. I know in my mind that that is a playbook. That is a pre-thought out, a pre-planned play. This came up in a think tank somewhere, and they decided this is going to be a quote that we're going to use to hide the fact that in reality, the Democrats are the biggest threat to democracy. All right. And this has been irrefutable ever since 2016. Prior to 2016, if you were scared from the Republicans, I would understand. I had empathy for, the Democratic voters who said, we've got to vote the lesser of two evils because the Republicans are so bad. I used to, prior to 2016, I had empathy for that line of thinking. But 2016 and beyond, the Democrats have not even tried to hide the fact that they are indeed rigging elections, primaries, and regular presidential elections on a regular basis. And I'm not just saying that with no receipts. Anyone who watches this channel understands that I'm going to have some articles, I'm going to have some clips for us to review. And if I'm wrong, please leave it in the comments section where I'm going wrong, what you disagree with, because I respond to all my comments. So if I'm laying out this argument that in fact the Democrats are the largest threat to democracy in the United States, if I'm wrong and you disagree, be sure to put it in the comments section and I'll do my best to address it. But first and foremost, before we get into the articles, we've got to find out what is it that the Democrats promise, right? Because you can't say that, oh, they lied if they haven't promised you anything. So for this, I want to go Exhibit A. I want to go and check out, the charter and the bylaws. All right. I think you can see that. The charter and the bylaws of the Democratic Party of the United States. This is where we're going to start off with. All right, we've got some articles, we've got some clips that we're going to check out. But first, let's read very briefly what it is that the DNC, the Democratic Party of the United States, in their charter and bylaws promise us. I'm going to skip a little bit here and go to something that's relevant, which is Article 5. Let's go down to Article 5. And let's go to Section 4, which reads, the national chairperson shall serve full time and shall receive such compensation as may be determined by agreement between the chairperson and the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, in the conduct and management of the affairs and procedures of the Democratic National Committee, particularly as they apply to the preparation and conduct of the presidential nomination process. Now, this is important because they're saying in particular, specifically, and in particular, particularly, as they apply to the preparation and conduct of the presidential nomination process. The chairperson shall exercise what? Impartiality. The chairperson shall exercise impartiality and what? And even-handedness. All right, they're promising two things as far as the DNC, as far as the national chairperson for the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. They're promising that the chairperson shall exercise one, impartiality, and two, even-handedness, as between the presidential candidates and campaigns. All right, so they're saying, the DNC is saying, the chairperson and the DNC will give and exercise impartiality and even-handedness between the presidential candidates and the campaigns. This is their presidential charter. This is the DNC bylaws and charter. This is their own words. It says the chairperson shall be responsible for ensuring that the national office or staff of the Democratic National Committee maintain impartiality and even-handedness during the Democratic Party presidential nominating process. Okay, so it's the chairperson's job to ensure that the DNC as an organization maintains impartiality and even-handedness for both the campaigns and the candidates in the Democratic Party's presidential nomination process. So says Article 5, Section 4 of what? Of the charter and bylaws of the Democratic Party of the United States. This is what they're saying. Not my words, this is their words. This is them promising to be even-handed. Them promising impartiality. This is them promising. This is their charter and bylaws of the Democratic Party of the United States, promising impartiality and even-handedness as it relates to presidential campaigns and candidates. This is what they promised us. But fast forward to 2016, what did we see? We saw Debbie Wasserman Schultz have to step down. We saw Donna Brazile admit that the DNC was bought by Hillary Clinton. What? Did that really happen? Yes, in 2016. Donna Brazile took the place of Debbie Wasserman Schultz as the chairperson of the DNC, and she later admitted that Hillary Clinton came and bought the DNC because they were broke. And in return for their financial liquid capital, the DNC was able to offer assistance and forewarning to the Hillary Clinton campaign. And we're going to get into that. I've got some receipts to follow up on that. But first, I just had to start off with first acknowledging their own words according to their own Democratic Party DNC charters and bylaws. Okay? Now, to recap, I want to pull this up. To recap what happened in 2016, we're all going to have to remember the name Donna Brazile. Donna Brazile became the chairperson in 2016 after Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to step down. And this is all public record because yes, the DNC was sued, and we're going to break all of this down tonight. The DNC, this is for the people who didn't know. Some people already know all this information, and this is just a study. But there's some people out there that I know didn't know this. Some people who weren't paying attention. Maybe you weren't old enough in 2016 to really understand any politics or understand voting or anything of that nature. Maybe you're young, right? So this might be to the youth who are thinking, hey, might be my first year voting, and I'm thinking of voting Democrats because Trump is so bad. What I'm saying is Trump is bad, yes, I acknowledge that, but the Democratic Party as a whole is a threat to democracy. From 2016 on, we see this consistent. Now, check this out. This is coming from Donna Brazile, who was the interim chairperson for the DNC after Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to step down in shame after being exposed for her participation in the rigging of the Democratic Party against Bernie Sanders. Check this out.
In her newly published book, Hacks, Brazile revealed that in August of 2015, the DNC struck a deal with Hillary Clinton's campaign to trade strategic and financial control of the Committee for Fundraising and Investments.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm gonna let it play, but let's just play that again, just for anyone who may have missed it. Anyone who may have missed it. 2015, Donna Brazile, the chairperson of the DNC, she wrote a book that said what?
That in August of 2015, the DNC struck a deal with Hillary Clinton's campaign to trade strategic and financial control of the Committee for Fundraising and Investments.
The party was broke, and she gave the party a lifeline of resources in order for us to compete, and that's what she did for the general election.
But
the party was broke. The party was broke, and Hillary Clinton gave us a lifeline. She gave us a lifeline in order to get strategic and financial control for fundraising and investment.
Raising and investments.
The party was broke, and she gave the party a lifeline of resources in order for us to compete, and that's what she did for the general election.
But the revelation of the agreement prompted some, including Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren and President Trump, to claim the election was rigged. Brazile now insists Clinton...
And I like, of course, this is coming from CBS. I like how some people like Trump claim that it was rigged. It was rigged. The chairperson of the DNC, the chairperson of their own party, admits in her book, Hacked, that it was rigged. Hillary Clinton came and bought the DNC.
Beat Bernie Sanders fair and square, but Sanders' former campaign manager says they were fighting an uphill battle.
There was a clear attempt, a pattern of behavior on the part of the leadership of the DNC at that time to tip the scale to Hillary Clinton.
Ms. Brazile's bombshell has some Democrats worried about their party's ability to win tough races, including today's gubernatorial race in Virginia.
A political...
Okay. All right. So we see here that what? Donna Brazile admitted as the acting chairperson of the Democratic Party that they failed to live up to their charter and bylaws. They failed to remain impartial and even-handed because they accepted liquid capital from the Clinton Foundation, and they sold themselves. They sold out the DNC to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Right? So as a result of this, you think people just took that line down? No. There were a lot of folks who donated their time, their money, their personal energy, and their word of mouth supporting Bernie Sanders in 2016. They were rightfully upset. Wait, you're telling me, Donna Brazile, that you're the chairperson and you sold out the DNC to Hillary Clinton, someone who is actively running? How does that sound impartial and even-handed? Is that legal? How were you able to do that? We're going to sue. Sue they did. So sue they did. Headlines read, DNC lawyer argues DNC has the right to pick candidates in back rooms. So Bernie Sanders supporters actually sued the DNC because they failed to be impartial and even-handed in the campaign between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And the DNC, in response, argues in court in Florida, Fort Lauderdale to be exact, that, you know what, we have the right to select whatever candidate we want. We can go in the back room with some cigars and we can pick our candidate, and your votes don't matter. They argued this in court and won. DNC lawyers argued in court and won the fact that we can select whatever candidate we want and your vote is irrelevant. They won that vote. They won that in court. Let's read this article. DNC lawyers argue DNC has the right to pick candidates in back rooms, and they won. Attorneys claim the words impartial and even-handed, as I just showed in the DNC DNC charter and bylaws. The words impartial and even-handed, as used in the DNC charter, they can't be interpreted by a court of law. A court can't tell us what impartial means, what fair and impartial and even-handed means. A court can't decide that. We can be whatever we want. On April 28th, and I'm going to read a little bit of this article just to give you all some background information, then we're going to get back to some more clips. On April 28th, the transcript was released, and sorry guys, I'm sweating profusely. It's summertime here, you know, it's hot, so y'all just bear with me. But on April 28th, the transcript was released from the most recent hearing at a federal court in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. All right. On the lawsuit filed on behalf of Bernie Sanders supporters against the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, and former DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz for rigging the Democratic primaries for Hillary Clinton. So people are suing. The voters are suing. This is a class action lawsuit. All of the voters, all of the people who donated money to the DNC, donated money to Bernie Sanders, donated money expecting a fair election, you know, the democracy, because mind you, we're talking about democracy, right? They say that the Republicans are the biggest threat to democracy, but this is what they are arguing in court. The voters are suing that, hey, you rigged the primaries. This is not a fair, even-handed, and impartial democracy. The Democratic primaries for Hillary Clinton. Okay. Throughout the hearing, lawyers representing the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz doubled down on arguments confirming the disdain the Democratic establishment has toward Bernie Sanders supporters and any entity challenging sorry about that, guys. And any entity challenging the party's status quo. Right? So they're openly admitting, yeah, the DNC, we hate Bernie Sanders. We hate Bernie Sanders supporters, and we hate anyone challenging the party status quo, challenging the nominee that we have selected. This is what they're arguing in federal court down there in Florida. They are not trying to hide it. The Democratic Party, the DNC, they're not trying to hide it. They are openly in federal court arguing that, yes, we hated Bernie Sanders, we hated his supporters, and we hate anyone who goes against the politician that we not elect, but select with an S. Select. All right, let's read some more. Shortly into the hearing, DNC attorneys claimed Article 5, Section 4 of the DNC Charter, stipulating that the DNC chair and their staff must ensure neutrality in the Democratic presidential primaries. Oh, this is what they argue. That's discretionary rule. And it didn't need to be adopted to begin with. This is what they're arguing. So when we go to their own charter and bylaws of the Democratic Party of the United States, and we expect that the DNC, the Democratic Party, live up to their own charter and their own bylaws, well, in federal court, they say, hey, that's discretionary rule. We don't really have to live up to that. We don't have to be impartial and even-handed in regards to the politicians running campaigns under our Democratic umbrella. We don't have to be even-handed. So Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, that doesn't have to be a fair race. Fast forward to 2024. Oh yeah. But Joe Biden, what happened to RFK? Oh yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that, and I might be burying the lead here, but we're definitely going to get into that. We're definitely going to get into fast forward to today and what do we see. We're definitely going to get into that, but I gotta lay the foundation. So y'all crawl with me before we walk. We're going to walk before we run. So I'm just laying the foundation here. We got to start back in 2016, but trust and believe we're going to bring it to 2024. So y'all just bear with me here. Their staff, okay. So they're saying that this is a discretionary rule. Article 5, Section 4, that's a discretionary rule. It's up to our discretion whether we want to enforce that rule. We don't have to be fair. We don't have to be fair. There's no law that makes us. Based on this assumption, the DNC attorneys assert that the court cannot interpret or claim to rule on anything associated with whether the DNC remains neutral in their presidential primaries. Meaning, hey, we don't have to be fair. The court can't make us. The attorneys representing the DNC have previously argued that Sanders supporters knew. They said, hey, the Sanders supporters knew the primaries were rigged. Therefore, annulling any potential accountability the DNC might have. Hey, the Sanders supporters, they gave money to Sanders knowing that the primaries were rigged. This is what they're arguing in open federal court. Attorneys representing the DNC have argued that the Sanders supporters knew the primaries were rigged. So they're saying there's no fraud here. You can't arrest us or enforce any laws as far as fraud goes. You can't hold us liable for fraud in this class action lawsuit. You can't hold us liable for fraud because the Sanders supporters knew the primaries were rigged. Well, if you didn't know, well, now you know. Let me say it to you like this. When I say the Democrats are the biggest threat to democracy, Exhibit A. You didn't know, now you know. The attorneys representing the DNC have argued that Sanders supporters knew the primaries were rigged. So now, if you're still voting Democrat, you have to understand your vote does not matter. It is rigged. 100% it's rigged. The attorneys and the DNC have already argued. They're letting you know it's rigged. We have the right to select our candidates. And you know what? The Bernie Sanders supporters should have known. They knew the primaries were rigged. They're saying this should be common knowledge. Don't act like you forgot. Don't act like you didn't know. The primaries are rigged, and you, as a voter, should have a responsibility to know that it's rigged. They doubled down on this argument that the courts would have to find the people who fervently supported Bernie Sanders and who purportedly didn't know that this favoritism was going on, would not have given to Sanders if they had known that there was this purported favoritism. Meaning, hey, you should have known it was rigged. You should have known it was rigged. Jared Beck, the attorney representing Sanders supporters in the class action lawsuit, retorted that the DNC charter is not akin to political rhetoric a politician would use during the campaign. I mean, it's not just something that a politician is saying. This is the charter and the bylaws of the DNC that the attorneys are arguing have no standing, cannot be held to account, but rather an inherent and important part of democracy in America. According to the DNC, it's not. Fairness to the candidates is not part of democracy in America. All right? The entire argument of the DNC in this lawsuit is to conflate the promises of the political candidate with those of an election arbiter, meaning the DNC itself, bound to neutrality by the DNC charter, and to claim that fraudulent inducement cannot ever be proven as the DNC attorneys allege. I think this is an impossible showing of causation. I mean, you can never prove it. And they won this case, by the way. They won this case. The DNC has argued that the Bernie Sanders supporters should have known it was rigged against them. They hate Bernie Sanders, they hate the supporters, and they hate anyone who comes against the candidate that they select. One thing I say, hold on, before we finish this article, one thing I'll say about the Republicans, it's very clear that the Republicans hated Donald Trump. Is that fair to say? In 2016, is it fair to say that the Republicans hated Donald Trump? You think the Republicans liked seeing, what's George Bush's brother on stage getting told to his face, oh yeah, your brother mishandled 9/11. He lied us into wars in Iraq. Oh no. Oh no. Donald Trump was not loved by the Republican Party in 2016 or in 2020. But you know what? They didn't rig the primaries against him. Huh? Message. Message. If we and we're gonna bring it forward to 2020 and 2024 elections as well. But let's just start from the beginning. In 2016, we saw the DNC, and I'm showing you that even in federal court, the DNC is not trying to hide it. They're openly saying, yes, the primaries were rigged against Bernie Sanders. I'm saying, think about the other side, though. The Republicans did not like Donald Trump in 2016. The status quo in the Republican Party did not like Donald Trump. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't rig the primaries against him. Huh? Okay. All right. Let's read a little bit more of this article, then we're going to get into some more clips. Now, people paid money. Hold on, let me show this. People paid money in reliance on the understanding that the primary elections for the Democratic nominating process in 2016 were fair and impartial. People who go out and vote, people who donate their money to the DNC, people who donated their money to Bernie Sanders, who was running as a Democrat at the time. They're relying on the idea, on the Democratic charter, and bylaws. They're relying on the Democratic primary charter and bylaws in their assumption that the process would be fair and impartial. And that's not just a bedrock assumption that we would assume just by virtue of the fact that we live in a democracy. Hint, hint, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic. I digress. It's not a democracy. And we assume that our elections are run in a fair and impartial manner. Well, that's an assumption that I'm here to cure you of. You might be suffering from this assumption, and I'm here to cure you of this assumption. After watching this video, you should no longer believe that the DNC or the Democratic Party has any interest in conducting a fair and impartial democratic process, whether it be in the primaries or in the general election. The DNC has no interest in a fair and impartial democracy. Even though that's what the Democratic National Committee's own charter says. It says it in black and white, and we showed that earlier, and they can't deny it. Not only is it in the charter, but it was stated over and over again in the media by the DNC's employees, including Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that they were, in fact, acting in compliance with the charter. This is what they told us on CNN, on MSNBC, on ABC. They had Debbie Wasserman Schultz repetitively get on air and say, hey, we are acting in compliance with our own charter and bylaws. And they lied to the American public. And they said it again and again, and we've cited several instances in this case. Later in the hearing, attorneys representing the DNC claimed that the Democratic... Okay, now here's the part that I really want to highlight before we move on. This is what I really wanted to highlight. Later in the hearing, attorneys representing the DNC claimed that the Democratic National Committee would be well within their rights to go into back rooms like they used to, smoke cigars, and pick the candidate that way. Your vote doesn't matter. This is what the attorneys for the DNC have argued in federal court, and they won. They won. This is something that I want to continue to emphasize. They won this case, saying they would be well within their rights to go into a back room, smoke cigars, and say, yeah, let's go ahead and elect Joe Biden for the Democratic nominee. Yeah, let's go ahead and select, not elect, but select Hillary Clinton for the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. But what about Bernie Sanders? What about RFK? Yeah, forget them. We're going to rig the primaries. We're going to give the answers to the questions to our candidate and leave the alternatives off the debate stage like they're doing today in 2024. Listen, matter of fact, let's go ahead and fast forward to today. But this is something I had to highlight this, that the attorneys representing the DNC claim that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, would be well within their rights to go into back rooms like they used to, smoke cigars, and pick their candidates. Your vote does not matter. By pushing the argument through proceedings of this class action lawsuit, the Democratic National Committee is telling voters, let's finish this paragraph out. By pushing the argument through the proceedings of this class action lawsuit, the Democratic National Committee is telling voters in a court of law that they see no enforceable obligation in having to run a fair and impartial primary election. I want to keep that highlighted for a minute so you can read it on your own. By pushing the argument through the proceedings, which they did and they won, this was a class action lawsuit, and the DNC has told all the voters and all the American citizens, hey, there is no court of law that can enforce an obligation on us to have a fair election, fair and impartial primary election. Meaning, we're going to select whatever candidate we want. We can go into the back, smoke cigars, and select our candidate, and it doesn't have to be fair. It doesn't have to be impartial. We can rig this primary against the candidate as we did in 2016 and as we're doing in 2024, and there's nothing you can do about it. With this being the case, I ask you, what is the motive for voting in the Democratic primaries? I don't know. I just don't know. Now let's get into some more clips. I want to play one more clip before we get into 2024. Now, for thus far in this video, I've been touching on the past because there's a lot of young folks who watch me, and the younger folks, I don't think they fully comprehend. I don't think they fully understand what went down in 2016 with Bernie Sanders. And this was a big deal for me because this is when I was first awakening to in the realm of politics. And this election, 2016, 2014, that time span was really affected me and my interest in politics, because this is the first time in my life where it was clear as day, irrefutable, that voting doesn't matter, the system is rigged. When the attorneys for the DNC argued in federal court openly that, hey, we can just go in the back rooms, smoke a cigar, and pick our candidate that way. And you know what? We're going to tell voters in an open court of law that there is no enforceable obligation for us to run a fair and impartial election. When they said that in open court, I was like, some people said that voting was rigged and voting doesn't matter. I used to not believe that until I saw this in 2016. This was big to me. This blew my mind. Like, wait, they're not trying to hide it? You're telling me the system really is rigged? That's what you're telling me? Yes, it's rigged. Now let's hear what a congresswoman has to say on this topic.
We learned today from former Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Donna Brazile that the Clinton campaign, in her view, did rig the presidential nominating process.
Did, in her view, rig the process. This is Donna Brazile, the chairperson of the DNC in 2016.
By entering into an agreement to control day-to-day operations at the DNC. The Clinton campaign controlling
The Clinton campaign controlled the day-to-day operations at the DNC. They bought it and controlled it outright.
To control day-to-day operations at the DNC. The Clinton campaign controlling the party's staffing, strategy, finances, communications, and that agreement was entered into in August 2015, a year before she defeated Senator Bernie Sanders. This must shock you.
Look, this is a real problem. But what we've got to do as Democrats now is we've got to hold this party accountable. When Tom Perez was first elected chair of the DNC, the very first conversation I had with him is to say, you have got to put together a Democratic Party in which everybody can have confidence that the party is working for Democrats rather than Democrats are working for the party. And he's being tested now. This is a test for Tom Perez. And either he's going to succeed by bringing Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders representatives into this process, and they're going to say it's fair, it works, we all believe it, or he's going to fail. And I very much hope he succeeds. I hope for Democrats everywhere. I hope for Bernie and for all of Bernie's supporters that he's going to succeed.
Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes.
Very quickly, do you agree? Do you agree that with the notion that the Democratic primaries were rigged? Yes. Yes. No hesitation. Like, is that even a question? Yes, it was rigged. They're not even trying to hide it. On CNN, Jake Tapper, like, it's common. It's common knowledge at this point that the system is rigged. Now, some people might hate the fact that I buried the lead on this one, but I had to lay the foundation. For now, we're going to talk about what's going on today. All right, so if you've made it this far in the video, salute to you. I know you're a real one if you made it this far in the video, and I probably should have started off with the fact of what's going on today, because a lot of folks might be like, well, you're talking about the past. That was 2016. What about today? What about today? It was rigged against Bernie Sanders, but he was going to lose anyway. So forget that. Leave that in the past. Okay, but what about today? What about today? Because no laws have changed. Nothing has changed in order to prevent the same rigging that occurred against Bernie Sanders. No laws have been passed to rig that type of corruption, to stop the system from being rigged against any candidate in 2024 and beyond. I present to you Exhibit C. And this is coming from CBS News. Headline reads, RFK Jr. files for FEC complaint over June 27th presidential debate criteria. Why? Because they are leaving RFK off of the debate stage despite the fact that the man is polling at 15%. RFK originally was running as a Democrat, and the DNC rigged the primaries against him. So he said, well, I can't run as a Democrat because it's rigged. You know what I got to do? I got to go as an independent. I can't go as a Democrat. I've got to run as an independent. So the man runs as an independent. He does pretty well. He starts polling at around 15%. That's double digits. That's respectable. Maybe the American people want to find out, who is this guy? Because the Democrats didn't have any debates in their primaries, despite the fact that Marianne Williamson was still running as a Democrat. Joe Biden refused to debate for good reason, because the man is senile and on his deathbed. The man refused to debate Marianne Williamson, refused to debate RFK. The primaries were rigged against both Marianne Williamson and RFK from the start. So RFK decided, hey, I'm going to go independent route, and he has some success. He starts polling around 15%. And when it comes time to get into the debate stage, and for the first time we can get some traction for the third-party voters, the people like myself who refuse to vote Democrat or Republican, the independents finally have somebody who we can hold up and say, hey, we want our voices heard too. We want to participate in this quote-unquote democracy, this fictional democracy. We want to participate. Let our candidate get on the debate stage and show you all some policies that we might be interested in, and can convey to you why we're not voting for the Democrats and Republicans. But no, even if you try to go the independent route, the system is rigged against you. Let's watch a little bit of this clip because there's a clip to go along here. We're going to watch this clip and then we're going to read a little bit more of this article.
For the 2024 presidential election and America Decides. President Biden's campaign is increasingly concerned that the independent bid of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who promotes conspiracies, could hurt Biden's reelection effort.
And you see how they frame this. The RFK, who promotes conspiracies, no basis to back that up. Oh, we're going to slander him before we even get into the facts of the case. We're going to slander him. We're going to dismiss him as a candidate who promotes conspiracies.
So Biden appeared with Kennedy's family, who has denounced their brother's views and his candidacy. CBS's Weijia Jiang with news from the campaign trail.
At a Biden campaign event in Philadelphia,
the Kennedy family endorses Joe Biden for president.
15 members of the Kennedy family, a political dynasty, threw support behind President Biden instead of their own relative, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I don't want to become emotional, but what an incredible honor to have the support of the Kennedy family.
RFK Jr.'s sister, Kerry Kennedy, did not mention him by name, but she insisted the race is just between Biden and Donald Trump.
A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for our democracy and our decency.
That's really what I wanted to play of this clip. You hear this foolishness that this woman just said? A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for our democracy. Here's the problem. A vote for Joe Biden solidifies the Democratic Party, which stands actively against democracy. The Democratic Party has rigged the primaries against your own brother. The Democratic Party rigged the primaries against your own brother, and now you have the nerve to go tell the people that people should vote for the Democratic Party in order to defend democracy? You actively rig primaries, rig elections. And then you want to say that we should vote for you because you're preserving democracy? The Democrats are the biggest threat to democracy.
Just between Biden and Donald Trump.
A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for our democracy and our decency.
It's ridiculous. I don't even want to hear the rest of this liberal garbage. I don't want to hear the rest of this CBS foolishness that they're talking. Let's read a little bit of this article so I can give you all some updates as far as what this complaint that RFK is filing is actually about. All right. So RFK Jr.'s campaign has filed a complaint with the Federal Elections Commissions that accuse CNN, President Biden, former President Donald Trump, and their campaigns of violating federal election law. I think he has a strong case here, actually. I think he has a strong case. We'll see. The Kennedy campaign claims CNN is approaching the debate criteria differently for Kennedy, an independent candidate, than for Trump and Mr. Biden. The presumptive nominees, now this is a new one. The presumptive nominees. Remember this phrase, it's important, so I'm going to come back to it. The presumptive nominees of their respective parties. What does this mean? What is a presumptive nominee? A presumptive nominee means they are not the nominees. They have not been elected by the Republican Party as the Republican nominee yet. Donald Trump has not been selected as the Republican nominee yet, and Joe Biden has not been elected as the Democratic nominee yet. Neither one of them have been elected as nominees. They are presumptive nominees, meaning we assume that they will be the nominee. Listen, I'm telling you, I don't assume that Joe Biden will be alive for the next 24 hours, much less assume that he's going to be a nominee. Fact remains, he is not the nominee of his respective party. CNN is holding the first presidential debate in Atlanta on June 27th, before either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party hold their conventions to formalize their nominees. That's important. That means that the first presidential debate is happening before the Republicans have a nominee, before the Democrats have a nominee. Joe Biden is not the Democratic nominee. He could pass on before he's elected as the nominee. Technically, it's possible. Not that I'm wishing death on him or anybody else. I'm just saying he's not the nominee. The Kennedy campaign is alleging the debate is an illegal campaign contribution for both Mr. Trump and for both Mr. Biden and Trump, which it is. This debate is CNN offering free ad time, free ad space, free camera time, You're putting them on a nationally broadcast, which is going to give them millions of dollars worth of publicity. And you're giving it only to two people, ignoring the other candidates who should qualify and who do qualify. This is theft. This is a campaign violation, is what it is. It's a campaign violation. Now, CNN is making prohibited corporate contributions to both campaigns, and the Biden committee and the Trump committee have accepted these prohibited corporate contributions. The complaint says, which they have. You can't contribute this much ad time, this much TV time, this much coverage to two candidates and ignore another candidate for a federal presidential process. That's violating campaign laws, campaign contribution laws. It's because, mind you, it's supposed to be fair and impartial, right? It's supposed to be fair and impartial. This quote-unquote democracy that you've been promised isn't looking too fair and impartial to me. Let's read on. CNN's debate criteria says a candidate must appear on a sufficient number of state ballots to reach the 270 threshold for the presidency and receive at least 15% in 4 major national polls by June 20th. Kennedy has not yet met the polling criteria because he's met on every poll that he's been in, he's hit the 15%. But I think he has to be polling at 15% in 5 different polls. I think he's got 4, and another poll that is nationally recognized has refused to list him on their poll. So again, they're rigging the system by not even giving him a chance. It's not as if his name was listed on the poll and he was being polled at 8%, 10%, 12%. No. They lift him off the poll altogether as if he's not even an option. Yeah. Democracy, sure. Sure. Kennedy is not yet, okay. So still, the Kennedy campaign argues that since neither Trump nor Biden has been officially nominated, they aren't eligible for any electoral votes. While Kennedy actually does qualify in a handful of states because he's an independent. So when the CNN is saying, "Oh yeah, we can't list RFK in the debates because he's not reaching 15%," RFK is saying, "Well, hey, you can't host Biden and Trump in the debates by your own metrics because they have not won their nominees. They haven't won the Republican or the Democratic primaries. So you're giving 2 quote-unquote presumptive nominees this airtime. They haven't won anything. They don't qualify by your own metrics. But you're going to disqualify me, RFK, saying I don't qualify? By your own metrics, they don't qualify. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. By demanding our campaign meet different criteria to participate in the debate than Presidents Biden and Trump, CNN Debates violates FEC law and is a large prohibited corporate contribution to both the Biden and the Trump campaigns. And he's right. They're right. The Kennedy campaign is asking the FEC to fine the parties in violation of the FEC, Federal Election Campaign Act, and stop them from participating in the debate for now. CNN, however, defends their qualification rules. The law in virtually every state provides that the nominee of a state-recognized political party will be allowed ballot access without petitioning. That's right. But notice it says the nominee of a state-recognized political party. Biden is not yet the nominee of the Democratic Party, and Trump is not yet the nominee of the Republican Party. As the presumptive nominee, you see how they just skipped that? You see how they skipped that? They go from the nominee of a state-recognized political party, and then they start to put in this new phrase, the presumptive nominee. Presumptive nominee is not a legal, that is not a thing. That is not a thing. Presumptive, that means you are making an assumption. When you make an assumption, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Right? You make an ASS out of you and me. M-E. Do not assume. So as the presumptive nominees of their parties, both Biden and Trump will satisfy this requirement. They won't, because they're not nominees. The requirement is for them to be nominees, which they are not. As an independent candidate under applicable laws, RFK Jr. does not. Right? They're saying RFK doesn't, but what I'm saying is Biden and Trump are not nominees. They've got this new phrase they're throwing around, presumptive nominees. Like I said, you can't assume anything. The next 24 hours isn't promised to you, me, or Biden, or Trump. The next 24 hours is not promised to any of us. So as of today, Biden is not the nominee of the Democratic Party. And as of today, Donald Trump is not the nominee of the Republican Party. They are still undergoing their primaries. So RFK is correct. RFK is correct. These guys, these are not nominees. These are presumptive nominees. They are conveniently assuming that they will be alive to win these nominations, and they are putting the cart before the horse. All right. So both Biden and the Trump campaigns have agreed to debate on ABC on September 10th. The Biden campaign has accepted CBS's new invitation for a vice presidential debate this summer. Blah, blah, blah. They're doing some ads. All right. So bottom line is, what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is the Democratic Party has a history dating at the very least, at a minimum, back to 2016, of rigging primaries, of being a hindrance to fair and impartial democracy. We have the former chairperson of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, and Donna Brazile, who wrote and admitted in her own book that the Hillary Clinton Foundation purchased the DNC. The DNC was broke. Hillary Clinton came and bought it. And it wasn't just applicable in 2016. It didn't end there. The legacy of rigging primaries, rigging elections, and having unfair and non-impartial election processes, it goes on to today. And we can see the same tactics being used against Marianne Williamson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The system is being rigged against these folks. And even though RFK is polling at 15%, even though he's the only one who would qualify according to these CNN standards, because Biden and Trump have not yet won their nominations. They have not yet won their nominations. They are still in the middle of their primary process. So even the fact that they're having these presumptive nominees included in the debates, and they're excluding other folks who are running for their candidacy for the nominations in the Democratic and Republican Party, and they're excluding the independent party candidates such as RFK, further goes on to show the rigging that the political parties are doing openly, specifically the Democratic Party. And to answer the question of is the Democratic Party the bigger threat to democracy, I once again have to draw your attention to 2016 and ask this question. I have to ask this question. We know for a fact, thanks to what was argued in open federal court down there in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that the DNC rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. They didn't even try to debate. They openly argued that we have the right to select our candidate, and we can go into a back room, smoke cigars, and select our candidate. The votes doesn't matter. They openly argued that in federal court. Fine. But I ask you, when looking at the Republican Party, reminding you that a lot of Republicans in 2016 to this day did not like Donald Trump. The Republican status quo, the Republican mainstream Republicans were not fans of Donald Trump. They did not like Donald Trump in 2016. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't rig the primaries against him. Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party, the DNC, didn't like Bernie Sanders. What did they do? They rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. The Republicans didn't like Donald Trump, but what did they do? They allowed him to have a fair election. So if we're talking about the lesser of two evils, if we're talking about threats to democracy, I submit to you that the DNC, the Democratic Party, is the biggest threat to democracy. In their own words, they don't even try to hide it. They don't even try to hide it. But yeah, we can rig our primaries. We have the right to select our own candidates. And the whole charter and bylaws, that's more of an option. That's an option. That's not a requirement. That's not a requirement. That's more of an option. Right? That's what the DNC has told us. All right, guys. So we're winding up on this video. I hope if you made it this far, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. I know I slow stroked this tonight. I had to go all the way back to 2016 before fast forwarding to RFK and the folks today. We covered a lot of information here. We covered information on Debbie Wasserman Schultz, down in Brazil, the charters and bylaws of the Democratic Party. I'm breaking down some real information to y'all, especially to the youth who might be out there who might not have known why people say, oh, voting is rigged, the elections are rigged. Well, now you know. When people say, oh, it's all rigged, it's all a game, I'm not saying it's all rigged, I'm not saying it's all a game, but there's a kernel of truth to that. There's a kernel of truth. There's a kernel of truth. I'm not saying it's all rigged, but the Democratic Party is rigged. There's a kernel of truth there. All right? As always, this is a sponsored video, so salute to our sponsors. We're going to play a quick PSA, a sickle cell PSA. So y'all check out the sickle cell PSA, and it will be available for independent review. You can check this out on the sickle cell PSA playlist. Everyone who's made it this far in the video, I know it's been a long one tonight. I appreciate you rocking with me. All right, so let's check out this sickle cell PSA. I'll give you all some closing thoughts and we'll get out of here. Check this out.
As a person with sickle cell disease, I know nutrition is important. But that doesn't mean you have to give away your heritage. There's a lot of good foods that Black people grew up on that are filled with good, nutritious things that would help in pain management. Take my collards. They're filled with folic acid, and that helps replace my red blood cells. That's important. It also helps with digestion and helps you avoid constipation. But you know what? It's not just what you eat, it's also how you eat. For instance, I've been replacing ham hocks with turkey legs. Same difference, but that tastes good. And another thing, you don't have to overcook your food. Cooked vegetables are supposed to be good, but you don't want to have to make them mushy, all right? Okay, see you at the picnic.
There are plenty of soul food goodies out there that aid in sickle cell pain management. Okra, plantains, and black-eyed peas are just a few. Good nutrition doesn't mean abandoning your heritage. Eat, drink lots of water, and be merry.
Boom! Brr, 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 brr. Brr, 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 brr. All right. So shout out and salute to everyone involved in the sickle cell PSAs. Listen, the message that they're trying to give is right, and that might be an independent video in and of itself. You know, we gotta, as Black folks, really pay attention to our diet, what we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies. I like in this clip, the sickle cell PSA, Unsi was talking about replacing the ham hocks with turkey legs. Now listen, I'm pescatarian, so I think we should get away from the turkey legs too. But I didn't just wake up pescatarian. It's been a process, right? First thing I did was stop eating the pork. So you got to replace the pork with what? The turkey, right? Then I cut out the turkey and the chicken. So first I cut off the pork, then I cut out the beef, then I cut out the birds, right? And it's been a progression. It's been a progression. So when you're trying to clean up your diet, when you're trying to start eating more plant-based, what you got to do is don't just wake up and say, okay, I'm not eating meat anymore. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're going to be hungry. You're going to go to a cookout. You're going to see all them chicken wings. You're going to see them hot dogs, them hamburgers. You're going to be like, man, forget that plant-based stuff. This is what I'm telling you. If you really want to eat better, if you really want to go plant-based, the process is cut out, do the baby steps. First and easiest thing, cut out pork. All right, no black person, no person really, no human should be eating pork because of all the parasites. It's like the most unclean animal. That's a whole nother video for another day. But you shouldn't be eating pork, first and foremost. But after you get done with the pork, once you put the pork down, then you put the beef down. All right? The four-legged animals go first. We're going to get rid of the pork. Then we're going to get rid of the beef, the lamb, get rid of the four-legged animals. All right? Then all we're going to do is we're going to eat chicken and turkey. Fine, fine. Get rid of the pork. Get rid of the beef. Eat your chicken. Eat your turkey. Once you get used to getting rid of your pork, you get used to getting rid of your beef. You get used to getting rid of your four-legged animals. Now you get rid of the birds. No more turkey. No more chicken. No more fowls. Right? No more fowl. Birds of the air. No more. No more birds. Get rid of that. Last step is you get rid of the seafood. That part is a little bit tricky. That's where I'm kind of stuck there, because when you go out in public, you try to go out on your dates, you try to go out and socialize, that's where things start to get a little bit complicated. But I encourage you to keep on going. Get rid of the fish, get rid of the seafood, get rid of the shellfish. All right. I'm pescatarian, so that's where I'm stuck at. But it's a process. If you want to get there, first get rid of the pork, then get rid of the beef, then get rid of the four-legged animals altogether, then get rid of the birds, all right? Then get rid of the seafood. It's a process. It's a process. Just keep building on that, and it'll help. Notice all of the foods that they listed to help with the blood cells, to help with managing sickle cell, they were all vegetables. Eating okra, plantains, black-eyed peas, collard greens, right? Eat the vegetables. The herb is for the healing of the nation, man. The herb is for the healing of the nation, not the meat, not the pork, not the beef, not the lamb. The herb, vegetables, fruits and vegetables. That's what is optimized for our bodies. I'm just saying. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I appreciate everyone who made it this far. If you have made it this far, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. And if it's your first time watching, smash the subscribe button for more content just like this. We're talking about a wide range of topics, from news, politics, current events, hip-hop, sports, and so much more. So be sure to come. Reparations, got to shout out reparations. So come on back for conversations on all of these different topics. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button to support us in the algorithms, because it's free. It's free, man. And hey, I'm not charging you. All you got to do, check out the video, hit the thumbs up, and I'm bringing information. I'm bringing receipts. If you learned something tonight, you know, I'm happy for you, because we reviewed the charter and the bylaws of the DNC. Hey, tell me what other YouTube channel you can check out and you see a black dreadhead man telling you all some stuff that's realistic and important to voting, to voting and real life situations that we see today. Hey man, I'm making politics cool in 2024. So smash the subscribe button and hit the thumbs up to support the channel. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.